Jesus. Yes, inshallah. This yours, inshallah. They have.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us opportunity to be here today in Nur al-Islam, Ikoyi Central Mosque. It is a honor for the Muslim Ummah in general and also for the Muslim Ummah in Ikoyi in particular to have this great lecture in this our time. I have it in mind for a long period of time, and inshallah I believe a day will come that I will fulfill it, or Allah will fulfill it for me.
Inshallah.
I have it in mind to deliver a sermon about importance of Waqf for the Muslim Ummah. Due to the way that many of our rich men, they have the opportunity to be blessed. But subhanallah, someone will pass away without doing work for his family, without doing work for himself. So it will end what you gathered has gone just for your family. But inshallah, I believe delaying the lecture till now maybe is for there is wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for me to have more evidences and more information about the importance of work for the Muslim Ummah. I went to Saudi, I saw it written, Waqf Uthman. Subhanallah. I just think deeply that look at the years Uthman bin Affan lived this world. More than 1,000 years above. More than 1,000 years above. But his waqf is still, his account is still written till date. This waqf of Uthman started from a well water. From well water, subhanallah, they built a mansion story building, very, very high story building, about I think 20 something story buildings from Waqf Uthman. So it's very, very important. This lecture, subhanallah, means a lot for the Muslim Ummah. Not only the rich, you in your house, you can do something that will be a waqf to you. As we mentioned, you can take a responsibility, a scholarship of someone, a child. Work as a work for yourself. The moment even he himself, if he grow up and start reciting Quran, you have ajr. Then if you go and teach someone from that Quran, you still have ajr. Look at the ajr continuously charity. It will be mentioned in our hadith several times that the moment someone dies, all your things have stopped. Unless three things. Among these three things, Sadaqatul Jariyah. So this lecture, I won't talk much. It's very, very important for the entire Muslim Ummah in general, and also in particular for the Muslim of Ikoyi Central Mosque. May Almighty Allah give our Dr. Sheikh Shuaib ability to deliver the lecture in an excellent way, and may the lecture be a fruitful one for the Muslim Ummah and beneficial for the Muslim Ummah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Next is recitation of a portion of the Global Quran by
Abdurrahman Murtaza.
Yes. Can you make this
نعم.
do like that? Like this question?
Abdurrahman Murtaza. تفضل.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويا قوم ما لي أدعوكم إلى النجاة وتدعونني إلى النار تدعونني لأكفر بالله وأشرك به ما ليس لي به علم وأنا أدعوكم إلى العزيز الغفار. لا جرم أن ما تدعونني إليه ليس له دعوة في الدنيا ولا في الآخرة وأن مردنا إلى الله وأن المسرفين هم أصحاب النار. فستذكرون ما أقول لكم وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. فوقاه الله سيئات ما مكروا وأحاط بأهل فرعون سوء العذاب. النار يعرضون عليها غدوا وعشيا ويوم تقوم الساعة أدخلوا آل فرعون أشد العذاب. وإذ يتحاجون في النار فيقول الضعفاء للذين استكبروا إنا كنا لكم تبعا فهل أنتم مغنون عنا نصيبا من النار. قال الذين استكبروا إنا كل فيها إن الله قد حكم بين العباد. وقال الذين في النار لخزنة جهنم دعوا ربكم يخفف عنا يوما من العذاب.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بارك الله فيك. جزاكم الله خير. Next is welcoming address, opening remarks, and citation of the lectures offered by the chairman of the Ramadan lecture series. Alhaji Tijani Garuda. Assalamu alaikum.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم. My brothers and sisters, those of you that are here physically and those of you that are online, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Indeed, it's an honor and a privilege that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us among the chosen ones to see this month of Ramadan. We are almost at the end of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those He's going to forgive
this holy month of Ramadan. May Allah make us those that He is going to endow His Jannah Firdaus when we pass away. Amen. We are here, my brothers and sisters. Once more, I want to welcome you, just like the Chief Imam has done, to this 17th Ramadan lecture being organized in this center under Bureau for Islamic Education. Perhaps for information and part of my opening or welcome remarks, I might want to inform you that, Alhamdulillah, this is the 17th lecture. We started this lecture 9 years ago, when the center was being improved and developed. We felt that when the month of Ramadan comes, we should do other activities apart from our usual congregational prayers. That was the reason why we said, why don't we do a lecture? Why don't you try to ask for assistance for endowment and whatever during the month of Ramadan? And I must say, we started this in 2015. And the first lecture was delivered by Professor Ishaq Akintola of Morik. And the topic was Destiny and Prayer. That was 2015. And after that, we had a series of lecturers, both within and from without Lagos and the country. For example, there was another topic, Leadership and Followership, by Dr. Abdul Hakim Abdul Latif. Sheikh Sani of Syrian Mosque delivered a lecture, Nigerian Muslim and 21st century challenges. And then, of course, there was Sheikh Awal, who came from the US and delivered the lecture, Miracle of Quran in the month of Ramadan, and so forth and so forth. This year, we delivered the 16th lecture, and the topic was the virtues of prayer, patience, and perseverance in the life of a Muslim during the time of hardship. This was delivered on the 18th of Ramadan. That was Sunday, 24th March, 2024. The lecturer was Fadilat Sheikh Isia Olatoye Sadiq. That was the last lecture we had, 16th lecture. And now, Alhamdulillah, we are here to have the 17th lecture delivered by Imam Dr. Abdullah Shaib. And the topic is understanding the concept of Waqf as an Islamic social finance tool for sustainable development. Now, Dr. Abdullah is not a new person to this center. If I may say, he has been part and parcel of these lectures right from the beginning. So it's now 9 good years that he has been part and parcel of these lectures, facilitating one through or the other. May Allah reward you abundantly. The only year we didn't have the lecture was during the COVID year. Doctor, may Allah reward you for your efforts in the name of Islam. Dr. Abdullah is not a new person to most of us here. If you Google his name, Imam Abdullah Shaibu, you will see whom I'm talking about. But for the purposes of our own records, may I say a few words about whom we have as our guest lecturer. Imam Abdullah Shaibu is a director of Jais Takafu Insurance Limited. He's an expert in Islamic finance. He obtained both Bachelor's of Science degree in Political Science and Master's in Political Science with specialization in Public Administration, both from the University of Lagos, Akoka. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Islamic Social Finance from the Loughborough University, United Kingdom. You can see he's an apt person to deliver this lecture. He also holds a certificate in Arabic language from the International University of Africa, Khartoum, Sudan. May Allah bring peace in Sudan. May Allah bring peace in Sudan. Dr. Abdullah Shuaibu is a fellow of Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals. He's also a fellow, certified Sharia advisor and auditor of accounting and auditing organizations of Islamic financial institutions, AAOIFI. He's a certified Islamic banker and also a certified Islamic specialist in Sharia auditing of General Council for Islamic Banking and Financial Institutions, CIBAFI. Dr. Abdullah Shuaibu is also a senior fellow of Halal Professionals. He's also a fellow of the Certified Institute of Public Administrators of England and Wales, a fellow of Civilian Institute of Democratic Administration, a fellow of the Center for Public Service Productivity and Development, a certified management consultant, and a member of Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria, among others, which I happen to be the president, Chartered Institute of Directors, Alhamdulillah. Dr. Abdullah Shuaibu is also a member of the Board of Directors of Al Jaiz Investment and Services Limited and Al Jaiz International Halal Certification Limited. He is currently the CEO of Jaiz Charity and Development Foundation. Incidentally, Dr. Abdullah Shuaibu and myself have had some discussions a couple of years about Waqf through a friend of ours. I forwarded this lecture to him. You know, we didn't make the progress we wanted to, but he's still talking about it. So I forwarded this lecture to him. So maybe Allah will bring his mind to come and do this Waqf. We were to do it for him about 8 years ago. Subhanallah, will not be able to do it. Even this Ramadan has not talking about it. So when this lecture topic was coined, I sent it to him. I remind him, may Allah make him do the Waqf. May Allah make him do the Waqf. Just like the Imam has said, Waqf is something that we must all think about. In our little ways, let us not do Waqf before Allah takes our lives. May Allah make it easy for us. May Allah accept whatever we are going to do. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah accept and may Allah reward you abundantly. The next the next line of action is the lecture proper, inshallah, by the guest lecturer, Sheikh Dr. Abdullah Shuaib. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Permit me to stand on the already established protocol by the Master of Ceremony. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Chief Imam of our mosque here, as well as the Chairman of the Ramadan Planning Committee, who happens to be my president at the Chartered Institute of Directors. Like he said, he has been piloting this important educational circle as far back as 2015. I pray may Allah continue to strengthen you and all other members of the committee for this important assignment you have been anchoring. And then may Allah put it in the scale of your reward as well as for each and every one of us. I will try as much as possible to cover the whole slide presentation, which I have about 31 slides, and also try to summarize the points because of time factor, because by one, we expect that we should have rounded up our conversation. So, like it has been rightly said, the topic of our conversation this morning is to look at to understand the understanding of the concepts of Waqf, as a tool of Islamic social finance for sustainable development. So I'm going to be looking at the introduction, then maybe break it down for us. What do we mean by Islamic social finance? Then we'll look at the meanings of Waqf, both the literary meaning as well as the technical meaning. And then we also want to now look at it from the context of our own country, Nigeria here. What are the legal instruments of Waqf practice in Nigeria? And then we also want to look at the Sharia legal basis of Waqf. And then we look at the Mazahib al-Arba'a, the four schools of Islamic jurisprudence, which we are all conversant with. What are the juristic basis of Waqf according to each of these schools? And then we'll now look at it also from the economic perspective, the economic basis of Waqf. And then from there, I will take us down memory lane to look at the history and the evolution of Waqf as it was done in the past. And then we look at the pillars of Waqf. In some places, they call it the elements of Waqf. And then what are the conditions, or what we call the conditionalities of Waqf. And then we also look at the categories of Waqf that exist. And then the types of Waqf also that exists. So that those of us who will have gotten what they needed from this conversation can then decide which one do I want to do as part of my own contribution in institutionalizing Waqf. And then we want to look at what are the benefits of Waqf. And by way of wrapping up this conversation, we also look at some examples of contemporary Waqf that are very successful in our own times today. And the last but not the least is to look at the impacts of Waqf, on sustainable development, especially we match them with the SDGs, that is the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, which we hope that by the year 2030, we will have accomplished all those goals as initiated by the United Nations General Assembly. And then we conclude by also leaving the room for those of us that may have maybe contributions or may want to ask questions for further clarifications, with regards to this topic. Now, let us look at Islamic social finance. Islamic social finance is a subset of the Islamic finance. So when we talk about Islamic finance, we are talking about financial transactions or economic activities in line with the principles of Sharia. Where there is no riba, where there is, no any element of unlawful transactions, there is no gharar. Gharar means uncertainty. There is no khimar. We are talking of, a game of chance, and then, of course, there is no usury, riba, interest. All these are some of the principles guiding Islamic financial transactions. So, an Islamic finance is a combination of two pillars. We have what we call Islamic commercial finance. Under the Islamic commercial finance, we have Islamic banking and finance. We have the capital markets. When you hear about sukuk is being driven by the capital markets, right? And then we also have, the what we call a mutual fund or wealth management. All these are under the Islamic commercial finance. Some will also argue that when you talk about takaful, from the prism of business, you can also classify them under Islamic commercial finance. Why some scholars can also tell you that, look, Takaful fits more appropriately in the second pillar of Islamic finance. And I will explain that. The second pillar of Islamic finance, comprises of zakat, waqf, sadaqat, infaq fi sabilillah, spending in the cause of Allah. We talk about Islamic microfinance. We talk about cooperatives. And then some scholars can also argue that takaful, which is the Islamic insurance, also comes under Islamic social finance. Because takaful is about mutual solidarity, mutual support for one another in the event of any major loss. When you insure your properties, or you insure your asset, in the event that there is any peril, any loss, mutually those who have subscribed to that particular insurance policy, we call them contributors. So from the pool of the contributors, you will now be indemnified. So looking at it from that angle, scholars will argue that takaful also fits into Islamic social finance. So Islamic social finance basically is an instrument or a tool, and it is a subset of Islamic finance deployed to provide social services to underserved people or communities. It can also be used to mitigate poverty, reduce income inequality, bridge the gap between the rich and then those who are economically worse off in the community. It can also be used to provide infrastructural improvement where we have infrastructural deficit, like we currently have it in our own country here. And of course, Islamic social finance tools can also be deployed to enhance the socio-economic living conditions of individuals as well as the community where the individuals exist. So all these put together come under what we call Islamic social finance. So you can see that Islamic social finance is very, very broad. One of it is what we want to talk about today, which is just waqf. We are not talking about zakat. We are not talking about Islamic microfinance. We are not talking about takaful. We are not talking about mutual funds, management. We are not talking about equity, funding. All this comes under what we call Islamic social finance. Now let us look at the meanings of waqf. Like I said, waqf has literary meaning. It has technical meaning. One of the literary meaning of waqf is for our understanding, though it does not carry the full meaning, but for our understanding, we can say waqf means endowment. But if we go deeper into it, we will see that the laws governing endowment differs with the law governing waqf. But for the purpose of our understanding here, we can say waqf also means endowment. But when it is more than two, like 3, 4, and so on and so forth, we call it Waqf. So Waqf is the plural of waqf. So when we say waqf, we mean endowment. When we say Waqf, we mean endowments. Another literary meaning of waqf means habsun. Habsun, which means to keep something, or to preserve something, or to hold down something, or to confine something without, letting this thing to go away. That is what we call habsun. In some places, they call it ubus. Right? So, in some other countries, like for example in Nigeria, some of the states, zakat and endowments body, like for example the one in Kano State, is being called Zakat and Hubsun Commission. So when you hear Hubsun, it is the same thing as waqf. And then another literary meaning of waqf is tasbil or tahdis. It means to direct something to a good cause, to put something in the way that it is going to bring public good to humanity. It also means waqf. So when you hear waqf, you hear habsun, or you hear tasbil, or you hear tahdis. They are all saying the same thing. It means waqf. And then the one that is very common among us is what we call sadaqatun jariyah. This is something that most of us we have been hearing about. So the issue of Waqf, the issue of Hapsun, the issue of Tahabiz. It may sound strange, but when you hear Sadaqatun Jariyah, you remember quickly. It is talking about what? Waqf. So these are just the literary meaning of Waqf. Now let us look at the technical meaning of Waqf. I want to draw the explanation from the IOFI standards. IOFI means the Auditing and Accounting Organizations for Islamic Financial Institutions. They have their headquarters in Bahrain, Manama, Bahrain. This is a global body that sets standards, for Islamic banking and finance globally, not just Nigeria, across the world. So in their standards, they have standards. In standard number 33, they explain very clearly what Waqf technically means, and I'm going to quote. According to IOFI, Waqf means locking up of the title of an owned asset from disposition and allotment of its benefits for a specific purpose without selling or giving it out as a gift. That is what IOFI define. So it means when you institutionalize Waqf, you want it to be there for a very long period of time. And even when you have gone, you have left this dunya to the world beyond, you don't want your children to sell it. You don't want them to give it out as a gift. But it is the proceed that is coming from the Waqf that will be used to provide social services or public good for humanity. This is what Waqf is, according to what IOFI has defined. But when we look at the definition from the literary point of view, or a layman point of view, we can say Waqf also means, Islamic bond. Islamic bond. For people who are very used to the workings in the capital markets, you'll be hearing about bond, treasury bond. But Waqf is different from that. But for the purpose of our conversation, I will say it is the Islamic bond, but not the bond in the conventional sense of it. Now, let us look at the instruments of Waqf practice in Nigeria. It will shock you to know that Nigeria, one of the most populous countries in Africa, and one of the largest, country with the largest population in the world. In fact, going by estimates of population according to the CIA, reports, Nigeria is over 200 million population. And out of this population, more than 50% are Muslims. More than 50% are Muslims, followed next by the Christians, then followed next by the animists. This is a country where we can say that over 100 million people who are Nigerians are Muslims. But it will shock you to know that in our constitution, the 1999 constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has amended a country where we have over 100 million Muslims, majority Muslims. There is no any legal provisions on the management of Waqf in our constitution. After how many years of attaining independence, those who rule this country, when they colonize us, deliberately, they demolish the institution of Waqf. They demolish it. And having gone so many years, they have left this country so many years. We have seen so many Muslim leaders who have ruled this country. It never occurred to us that one of the instruments Allah has given to us to solve the economic challenge of this country, we don't have any legal instruments in the constitution that talks about the management of Waqf at the federal level. When we talk about the state's government, yes, the constitution gives provisions. It says for any state that desires to have zakat or to have Waqf, they can go ahead and go and legislate, pass an act into law. But at the federal level, we don't have. We don't have. So that is a very big minus for us. So those that matters should help us to look into this shortcoming and let us do the needful. Because of the benefits it's going to bring to Nigerians and to any resident in Nigeria, whether you are a Muslim or you are not a Muslim. In the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, it provides the legal basis for the state houses of assembly to establish Waqf institutions in Nigeria. Such as, for example, if you look at section 262, subsection 1, it says, the Sharia Court of Appeal is vested with the jurisdiction to adjudicate on appeals on any case concerning Waqf as the subject matter. Please underline, the Sharia Court of Appeal is vested with the jurisdiction to adjudicate on appeals on any case concerning Waqf as a subject matter. That is section 262, subsection 1. Now, if you go to section 262, subsection 2, paragraph C, it states that the jurisdiction of the Sharia Court of Appeal on Waqf is only, underline it, is only applicable where the endower or the donor is a Muslim. In other words, whoever wants to do Waqf, going by the law governing us in this country, it is only applicable if the person is a Muslim, which means a non-Muslim cannot do what? Cannot make Waqf. If you go down to section 39, subsection 1 of the same constitution, of this section is talking about the Land Use Act of Nigeria. It gives the High Court, look at the contradiction. These are challenges for us as Muslims. It gives the High Court, not the Sharia Court of Appeal, the High Court, exclusive original jurisdiction in respect of any proceedings concerning land which is the subject of the statutory right of occupancy. This is the section that talks about Land Use Acts. You will see where there is contradiction now. If you go down to section 41 of the Land Use Act of Nigeria, it gives jurisdiction to area courts, customary courts, area courts, customary courts, or any other competent courts of equivalent jurisdiction in a state to adjudicate on Waqf matters. Look at the contradiction. To adjudicate on Waqf matters concerning giving out a customary or a family land as Waqf. See, section 41 is contradicting section 39, subsection 1. When it comes to the law, the higher courts judgment or ruling will overrule the ruling of the lower courts. The ruling of the high court will overrule the ruling of the area court or customary courts. Now, I'll give you an example. A state high court of justice in Katsina in 1997, this is a case. A state high court of justice in Katsina overruled section 41 of the 1999 Constitution in the case of Alhaji Ahmadu Rufai versus Alhaji Abdul Rahman, appeal court number CA/K/120/5/1997, where the justices said the appellant is at liberty to take the case to the court of appeal if they are not satisfied. So what I'm trying to bring out here is that we are disadvantaged as Muslims in this country. Because when you do Waqf, especially if it has to do with land, that section will always override whatever your customary court, whatever your area court, because the high court has a higher jurisdiction over the lower courts. Now, another shortcoming we have is that In Nigeria, there is no Sharia court registry in Nigeria. You don't have it. So even when you have a Waqf and you want to document it, you have to go to the High Court registry to go and do what, to go and register it. You don't have Sharia court registry. So we are using this platform again to appeal to our Muslim brothers who are in the state houses of assembly, who are in the House of Reps and the Senate, to look into this matter, and those that matters also to look into it. As Muslims that form majority in this country, we are being shortchanged, because these are legacies that can solve some of the challenges that the country as a whole, has. Having said that, let me quickly also move to look at the Sharia and legal basis of Waqf. When you look at the Quran, there is no any particular nasu in the Quran, that is text in the Quran, that mention Waqf categorically. But the Quranic verses that we have, and based on the tafsir of those ayats, scholars were able to come forward and deduce that those verses were talking about Waqf. Just like if you look at the Quran, for example, when you talk about zakat, there are more than 28 places or 30 places in the Quran where Allah talks about zakat. Allah says, وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. But in the case of Waqf, you can't find anywhere where Allah mentioned Waqf like that. But there are verses of the Quran that their interpretation and the analogy given by the Mufassirun, they made us to understand that these particular verses are talking about Waqf. One of them is, if you look at Quran chapter 28, Surah Al-Qasas, verse 77, Allah says, وَابْتَغِ فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ دَارَ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ إِلَى آخِرِ آيَةٍ. Which means Allah says, seek through that which Allah has given to you the home of the hereafter, and do not forget your share of the good things of this world, and do good just like Allah has been good unto you. So this verse, they said, is talking about what? About Waqf, which means the hereafter is better than this dunya. Allah also mentioned in the Quran, Allah says, تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يريدون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. Allah says, the home of the hereafter is far better than whatever we can think of in this world, and we have prepared it for those who will never be arrogant on the surface of the earth, and who will never become mischief makers on the surface of the earth. And the end will always be better for those that have taqwa. If you look at Quran chapter 3 verse 92, that verse with the tafsir also shows that it's talking about Waqf. In fact, they even said that ayah was referring to Talha bin Zubayr, whom Allah gave a very, very gigantic, date palm. And it is one of those things that he loves so much that because he came late, missing the Takbiratul Ihram, you can look at our forebearers. Due to his attachment to what Allah has given him, he gave it out fi sabilillah as Waqf. Where Allah says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You can never attain righteousness until you give out that which you love most. That is some Quranic verses. But when we look at the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the common hadith, the Imam recited it when he was making his brief, opening remarks, that the hadith that talks about sadaqatun jariyah, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was supported to have said, إِذَا مَاتَ الْإِنسَانُ انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث. When the Son of Man passes away, is disconnected from this world except three things that will be connected to him hatta yawm al-qiyamah. First of it is sadaqatun jariyah, an ongoing charity or a perpetual charity. A charity that it is not a one-off. A one-off charity is the one that people come here in the morning or in the evening, they bring food for people who are fasting. That is charity. It is one-off. The moment the person who is fasting eats the rice, eats the meat, drink water, before Subuhi, the person goes to defecate. It's gone. That charity has been consumed and it is gone. That is what we call one-off charity. Or you give somebody 50,000 naira. If the person collects the money, buy food, buy clothes, buy shoes, buy some other things he needs. Maybe after a month or 2 months, the money is finished. That is one-off. That is just a one-off charity. The Sadaqatun Jariyah is a perpetual one. Something you do. And it is there for a very long time. People are enjoying it. For example, all this, the AC we have here, the fan we have here, the Masahif we have, the Quran we have here, they will always be here for a very long time. Each time somebody comes in and he says, oh, Alhamdulillah, the masjid is very, very cool. Oh, Alhamdulillah, I'm enjoying it. That person is consuming that particular charity you have put. And it's not the only one. Even when you go, some people come, they consume it. It has been like this for so many years. That is what we call Sadaqatun Jariyah. Alhamdulillah, I will talk about it when we get there. One of the Sadaqatun Jariyah that we want to do in this masjid also. Then the second one is knowledge that is beneficial to people. Just like the Imam and all the other Aimma and the Asatiza, they are doing coaching our children, transmitting the knowledge of the Quran to them, transmitting Arabic language to them. Each time these children understand and it is useful to them, the Imams and those who are responsible will be collecting their own reward as well. Because that knowledge is not a one-off knowledge. It is a perpetual knowledge. It is a permanent knowledge. Even when these children, as young as they are, when they grow old, to become 20-something years, 30 years, 40 years, anywhere they go in the world, for as long as they are transmitting this knowledge to people, you can imagine the reward, the return on investment that will be going back to their teachers, those who taught them. Subhanallah. That is a very, very gigantic investment that will never go down. Even when the person who taught the children has even forgotten, his account will still be credited by Allah hatta yawm al-qiyamah. And the same thing with the parents who enroll the children in the school to go and learn about Quranic memorization, to learn about Arabic language, to learn about Islam. They will all be getting reward. Then the third one is waladin salihin yad'u lah, righteous child that prays for his or her parents. The prayer of a child for one's parents is da'watun mustajabah. Is a supplication that Allah will always answer. Even when the parents are not alive, the prayer will still continue to meet them in their grave hatta yawm al-qiyamah. If they are alive and the child continue to pray for their parents, the prayer will be answered by Allah. So that is Sadaqatun Jariyah. So it is important for us as parents to teach our children the act of making dua, so that they get used to it. So that when you are not even alive, you can be rest assured that your child or your children will not forget you. Every day they will remember you in their prayers. And the prayer they make will become divine light that will illuminate your grave. Hatta yawm al-qiyamah. So this is also one evidence about Waqf from that hadith. Then let us look at the juristic basis of Waqf from the 4 jurisprudence school of thought that we all know as Muslims. We have the Malikiya school of thought, we have the Hanabila school of thought, we have the Shafi'iyya school of thought, then we have the Hanafiya school of thought. They all have their position on the issue of Waqf. For example, the Malikiya school of thought says Waqf is about giving out something beneficial for the duration of its existence, requiring that it will remain in the possession of the giver, even if only for a limited period. That is what Malikiya school of thought believes. Of all the 4 Mazahib. Malikiya school of thought is the one that says that Waqf can be temporary, and they have their evidences. While the other three, the Hanabila, the Shafi'iyya, and then the Hanafiya, they said Waqf must be permanent. I will explain this again when we get to that particular point. Then concerning the Hanabila school of thought, they said Waqf is Ta'bif al-Asli wa Tasdil al-Thamar. That is to preserve the origin and then using the proceed in a good cause. For example, in this masjid, we said we want to institutionalize a Waqf of about 47, but let me approximate it or even upgrade it. Let us say we want to do a Waqf of 100 million naira. Out of it, we are going to buy a solar panel and energy for alternative source of electricity, and then we also want to have scholarship for our children to memorize the Quran, to learn Arabic language, to learn about the day, especially for the widows and as well as the orphans. That money doesn't mean that when we have the 100 million, the 100 million will keep it in the account, and then every month we'll be taking out some expenses from it to meet the needs. No, that is not the way Waqf works. You must not touch the original principle, which is called the Aslul Mal, must not be touched. We call it the corpus. That is the technical language. Must not be touched. It must not depreciate. It must not go down. It is the thamar, the proceeds from that 100 million, which means that money must be invested in Sharia compliant instruments that will generate returns. It is from the returns that we will now be using to now meet the scholarship needs of children from lesser or from humble families. Otherwise, if you touch the original capital before 1 year, 2 years, that money is gone. And that is what the Hanabila also is saying here. He says, Ta'adusul Asli, confine, hold down the original capital. What has been in Thamar, and then the proceeds from the capital, you now use it to meet your needs. Then the Shafi'iyya, they said, Waqf means preserving a property that can benefit while remaining in its original form by cutting off the disposal of an existing permissible object. All of these school of thought, they are saying the same thing, they're using different languages. The summary of what they are saying is that the original money, Aslul Mal, you have to preserve it. Preserving doesn't mean keep it in your account. Invest it in Sharia compliant instruments, and when you are investing it, you also diversify your investment in order to mitigate the risk element that may come into putting all your eggs in one basket. And then the return on the investment is what you are going to be using to meet the needs of the lesser people or the less privileged people. The Hanafiya also told the same line. They said, preserving the property from estate of the donor and giving in charity for the benefit of the poor or for some charitable purpose is in the status of the poor people. It's the same thing they are saying. What they are saying is that you have to detach the endower from the mawkuf, the endowments, detaching away from it, and then don't also allow that property to be given out as a gift, no matter the condition may be. There is this concept of istibdal in Waqf. You can do istibdal in Waqf if the need arises. That is, you can exchange a Waqf that is deteriorating. If, for example, you have a property that has been endowed and erosion has eaten 2/3 of the land of that property, if care is not taken, the property will collapse. So what you can do is you do istibdal, you exchange. So which means you can sell off that property, sell it off, then the money you are getting from the sale, use it to go and buy another similar or better property to continue with that particular property. That is what we call istibdal al-khawf, the Waqf. Now let us look at the economic benefit in the basis of Waqf. Basically, we have four. It is the combination of these four that makes economic sense of Waqf. The first one is what we call Ifkar. Ifkar means keeping and preserving the capital. You can see it is also in line with the four school of thoughts, talking about keeping, preserving the original money, which we call the main capital, the principal capital. You preserve it. And then when you are preserving it, for it to have economic value, you must do what? You must develop it. Which is the next one, which is called Tatwir, development. You have to develop that capital. Because a capital you keep without developing it doesn't make any economic sense. And that is why in one of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was talking about the estate of an orphan, he said, if you are the wakil of an orphan who is still a minor, and you are the wakil, the trustee of the estate of the orphan, if you don't invest the orphan's estate, zakat will be eating it gradually until the thing will come down to, zero book value. Because if this year you take out zakat, the following year you take out zakat, the time will come when the estate will no longer become zakatable, right? So which means at the end of the day, that child will become very poor. Somebody was rich has now become poor. Why? Because you did not develop the estate. That is why I said, develop the estate of an orphan who is still very, very young. Otherwise, Zakah will finish eating it all. So the same thing will work for. After preserving it, we have to develop it. And in developing it, what do? We move to the next stage, which is istismar. We call it istismar. You investments. And you have to be very, very tactical and shrewd when you want to invest. That is why zakat management requires investment analysts among us. If you are not an investment analyst, don't even dabble into it. You can outsource it or you can consult and tell them to give you expert advice. Because if you don't get it right, subhanallah, you are going to be held accountable by Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah. Because if you don't get it right, by using the knowledge and the expertise of investment analysts to guide you so that the investment will be giving you return. Otherwise, if the thing collapses, you are responsible. And you'll be held accountable on Yawm al-Qiyamah. So, investment is the third stage. And then the fourth stage, which is shared prosperity. That is the stage of what we call shared prosperity, for the investment. And that is ta'zim al-rahim. That is moving towards the path of growth and prosperity. That is what Waqf want to do in our life. Because Waqf wants to bring prosperity to the community. Waqf wants to take us out of the poverty circle, break the poverty circle, and then try to improve the living conditions of the people where that endowment has been institutionalized. That is the end goal of Waqf. If you do any Waqf and you are not able to achieve that, then something is wrong somewhere. We have to go back to the drawing board to look at where we have made, mistakes. Now, let us quickly look at the history and the evolution of Waqf. During the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the opportunity, just like most of us also we have the opportunity in our time. The first Waqf in the history of Islam was the Masjid al-Quba in Medina. For most of you who have gone on Umrah, you discover that your Umrah guides will always take you to Masjid al-Quba. Say, let us take you to Masjid al-Quba. Go and look at the masjid, and then you observe Nawafil there. That was the first, Waqf, in the history of Islam. The second Waqf was the Masjid al-Nabawi in Madinah al-Musharrafa. That is the Prophet Mosque in Medina. That was the second Waqf in Islamic history. And we all know how the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam bought the land from orphans, and then they paid the orphans off, and then they built that mosque. Today, that mosque has been transformed. It has been transformed from where it was before to where it is today. This is where the concept of istibdal becomes meaningful. For most of you who have been going on Umrah, or those who have gone on Hajj, do you think the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, do you think the way it was during the time of the Prophet is the way it was today? No. Neither is the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina. Do you think the way it was during that time is the way it is today? But what they did is, because the two mosques, they are Waqf. But because of the concept of istibdal, it has been transformed. And you keep seeing the custodians of the masjid, they are not sleeping on their hours, or they are not resting on their hours. They keep on developing it, because that is the concept of Waqf. From preserving it, to developing it, then to growing it, and then achieving shared growth and prosperity for the Ummah. Nobody will ever visit either of the mosques without saying Allahu Akbar. If you are a first timer, you see Masjid al-Haram like this, nobody can describe the way you feel for you. Nobody can describe it. Even you yourself, you cannot describe the kind of joy. You are looking at the Kaaba, the way it is, and the masjid. There is no any other gathering in the world that has the kind of facilities we have in those two mosques. None. Then another one is, look at some of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam: Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Sa'id bin Abi Waqqas, Umar bin al-As, and then we have Abu Talha. All of these companions, radiallahu anhum ajma'in, all of them endow their heirs, their houses for their children and family members. Just like the Imam said, many of our people who are blessed by Allah, don't die. Don't allow death to meet you without you also doing Waqf. Because, like I said, this is a return on investment that is permanent. If you have people who are competent to help you manage it, the reward will be there. When you are alive, when you are not alive, it will be there for you. And you also see the reward. The day when mankind will stand before their Lord. All the company of the Prophet, all of them, those that have the ability and the strength and the means, they institutionalize Waqf for their family members. Like the Imam also said, if you look at the Biru Ruma of Uthman bin Affan, the Biru Ruma of Uthman bin Affan is located some 6 kilometers northwest of Masjid al-Nabawi, the Prophet Mosque in Medina, and north of Masjid al-Qiblatayni, the Masjid, the Biru Ruma, the well, was bought from a Jew. When the Muslim first arrived in Medina, there was shortage of water, and there was only one source of water from this particular well owned by a Jew. And Jew by their nature, they are very exploitative by their nature. And Muslims were in need of water. So Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu approached the Jew and tried to persuade him, to sell the well for him for the use of the community. The Jew refused. It is in their DNA, especially those who are very wicked, the Zionists among the Jews. Not all Jews, but the Zionists among them are the worst of all human beings on the surface of the earth. Always exploiting people. He refused. And it became so difficult for the Muslims. Again, Uthman bin Affan approached him and then brought another alternative. Said, okay, why don't you sell part of the wealth for me? Sell for me a day, and then the following day it becomes your own. Said, what do you mean? Said, okay, today is what? Today is Sunday. Let me pay for today Sunday. Then by Monday, you can do whatever you like with it. Then the Jew now said, this makes sense. I will still own this property and I will make money. He sold. Uthman, irrespective of the amount, paid. So Muslims and those who are not even Muslims, they drink from the well. But you know what happened? Those who knew that the Jew was exploiting them, they will drink from the well, they will store from the well. The one that will take care of their need the following day, when the Jew will be the owner of the well. So it was like that. The following day, when the Jew was the owner of the well, nobody was coming to drink. Nobody was coming to buy water. And we observed that the third day, the day of Uthman, people were fetching water, people were buying water. The day after again, nobody was coming. He now approached Uthman. Said, okay, I want to sell off the well. Because he was not making money again. You know, every consumer is a rational human being. Where you find something that is less in prices, you go after that. So, despite the fact that the Jew asked for an amount much more greater than what the well was, Uthman doubled it, and then paid the man off, and then the well became the property of the Muslims. He endowed that well for the Muslims entirely. That well today, when I was doing my research, I tried to find better data. I've not been able to lay my hand upon it. In 2018, today we are in 2023. How many years now? Difference? 6 years difference. In 2018, half of the income that they generated from the Biru rumor of Uthman bin Affan, 50% of it, was nothing less than 50 million Saudi riyal every month. If you convert that to Nigerian naira today, we are talking of over 16.6 billion naira monthly. From that well, they have built so many hotels, so many companies, so many industries have been built from that well alone. Average half monthly income they generate was nothing less than 15 million Saudi riyal monthly, not annually. So if you multiply that by 12 months, you can imagine what that well is generating. As I'm speaking with you today, that Roma is still very much functional. It is still functional. It has given birth to so many other alcoves. So one alcove can give birth to another alcove, to another alcove, to another alcove, if it is well managed. Also, if you look at the case of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he has a farm called the Tamgu. It was a garden of date palms in Khaybar. The day Umar approached the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he approached the Prophet and said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, inni istafadtu malan wa indi nafis. He said, I want to, I have been endowed with wealth, which is very dear to me, and that فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَتَصَدَّقْ بِهِ. He said, I also intend to endow this particular date palms. Then the Prophet told him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, تَصَدَّقَ بِأَسْلِهِ. Endow it, preserve it, وَلَا يُبَاعَ, but make sure that they do not sell it. وَلَا يُهَابَ, and they don't give it out as a gift. وَلَا يُرَاكَ, and your children do not inherit it from you. وَلَكِنْ يُنْفِقْ ثَمَرُ, it is the proceed from this particular date palm that you should use to provide social services for the community. And the Umar now did that. He endowed the date palm. And the date palm also, as I'm speaking to today, is still very functioning. It's still functioning. It has given back to so many other, Waqf that are generating revenue for the community. And that is why you see Saudi Arabia, they give us scholarship to so many indigent children across the world. In Ramadan, they provide food, not only for people in Saudi Arabia, they provide food across the world. Where do you think they get all this from? It is from the Waqf, the process of the Waqf. So this is something that is very, very beneficial for us if we are able to get good managers to manage it. To start it is not the issue, but to manage it very well and sustain it is the challenge. Now, let us also look at the case of Khalid bin Walid. We all know Khalid bin Walid, a very great warrior in Islam. He also gave out his house and his armory for the sake of Allah. So Waqf doesn't mean only a masjid or only a house. The horse that Khalid was using, his weaponry which he used to fight to defend Islam, he also endowed it fi sabilillah. So you also can also do Waqf. Your intangible asset that you have. Your intangible asset is your intellectual property. If you are a good writer, you have written several books, you are a prolific writer, you have written books, and those books are selling very well. You can also endow, proceeds from that particular book, as Waqf. If you have investments in several institutions, in several manufacturing companies, you can endow. Even if not everything, you can divide it into two parts. Say 50% of my investment in Dangote, sugar, or Dangote, refinery, or Dangote cement. 50% of my investment, I want to endow it, for the Bureau for Islamic Education, this center. So not the money, the proceeds. It is the proceeds you are getting, that is the dividend you are getting from that investment, that will be coming to your account as as the fruit of the investment that you have made, while you still have 50% of the investment to take care of your needs. Also, women also did the same thing. The wives of the prophets, such as Hafsa, Salama, Ayiba, Safiya, they all endowed their jewelries. So our women too can do the same. The gold they have, they rarely use those golds. Some of them have the golds, stored in their wardrobe, from 24 karat to 22 karat to 18 karat. They don't use it. They only use the smaller karat on a daily use. Only when they have special occasion, that is when they use those, gold. Even those scholars also differs. They say whatever you use as ornament for yourself, there is no zakat on it. Another opinion from the scholar says, if those golds are not used regularly, they are used, occasionally, then zakat becomes compulsory upon them. You can also endow these jewelry, just like the work of the prophets. They endow it and then use the proceeds to take care of their families. Then we also have endowment from so many of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Another example of Waqf we are going to be talking about is the pillars of Waqf, or what we call the elements of Waqf. There are 4 pillars of Waqf. If these pillars are not there, it is not complete. Just like we have 5 pillars of Islam. If you take away one, it is not complete. The first one is what we call Waqif, the endower, the person who wants to do Waqf. It can be an individual, it can be 2 people coming together, it can be 3 people coming together, it can be a jama'ah, an institution who wants to do the Waqf. We call the person Waqif, the endower. The second pillar is what we call Mawquf. The Mawquf is the object we want to endow. What do we want to endow? What we want to endow can be something that is tangible, can be something that is intangible. If it is intangible, for example, like I mentioned, this center wants to institutionalize Waqf, scholarship Waqf, to encourage our children to memorize the Quran, to have the knowledge of the science of the recitation of the Quran, to also understand Arabic language, to understand the Hadith. This is what we call intangible Waqf, because you cannot see the structure physically, because it is knowledge that we transmitted from point A to point B. But the second leg of the Waqf we want to do, that one is what we call tangible Waqf. We want to have a solar panel, solar energy, to serve as alternative source of electricity. There are some places, for the past 1 decade, they are not on electricity. Nothing concerns them with electricity from government. They have their own private electricity. They are using solar energy. So when people are lamenting that they have increased the tariff, For those who are on band A, from 66 kilowatt per hour to now 225 kilowatt per hour, that is a lot of money. So which means for you who cannot sleep without AC, you have to understand that you must be able to load your electricity very, very well. You must enjoy your AC for a very long time. But if you don't want to use their own, you want to have your own private one, then that is what we call a tangible mawquf, because you are going to see it. You are going to see what you are going to use the money for. So we call it mawquf. Then the third pillar of waqf is mawqufu alayhi, that is the beneficiaries. Who are going to be the beneficiary? Because the beneficiary must be specified depending on the nature of the waqf you want to institutionalize. It must be specified. But in the case of this masjid, the beneficiaries are general people. They are general people. Those who are going to be praying the 5 daily salat here, or those that will normally come maybe once in a week, or those that will come during Ramadan alone, or those who live in the neighborhood but they always come here to come and see maybe the principal, or to come and see maybe the DG of the center, or to come and see some of their friends, both male and female, they are all general. So when you specify beneficiaries, they are general, that one means anybody can benefit from the mawquf. Then the last but not the least is what we call the al-sigga. The sigga, or what we call hujjatul waqfu, that is the waqfu deed. That is the document that will show the details of the waqfu that we want to institutionalize. The details contains if somebody is going to be the one to sponsor it, the name of the person, the date you wanted to institutionalize it, the value of the waqf itself, the value of the mawquf itself, the nature of the mawquf, whether it is fairly used, whether it is used, it is new from the beginning, the location of the mawquf, the size of the mawquf, every detail that we need must be documented. Then the witnesses of the mawquf, witnessing the person donating it to the center, everything must be documented. So that if after 10 to 15 years, we want to look at what is the current value of the mawquf, that is when we know whether we are properly utilizing it and managing it, or we have incapable managers who are managing it. Then the next one is the conditions of waqf. Majorly 4. Number 1 is ownership belongs to Allah. The moment you say you want to do waqf, you are putting it in the service of Allah and humanity, whether it is going to be permanent or temporary. For example, when you build a mosque, you donate a mosque, even though they write your name there, they say Masjid Sheikh Musa Muhammad Yabo. His children cannot come tomorrow and say, our father is the owner of this mosque. Imam, we don't want this Imam. Change him, put another Imam there. No, they don't have that power. They don't have the authority. But unfortunately, it's happening in Lagos here. Some of the organizations where I coordinate, they come with complaint that the one Alhaji donated the mosque, and now the man is gone. Now the children are now saying that they have sold all their father's property, so they are hungry, and the only one left is the masjid. And they have seen an Igbo man who wants to buy the masjid, and the man is ready to pay them 50 million. These are children who have delayed from the path of Islam. So they are not putting pressure on the Jama'ah. They want to drag them away. The Jama'ah are refusing to go. So you see them smoking Indian hemp in front of the masjid. So when the man that is leading the prayer is also smoking Indian hemp indirectly, do you think the man will come here the following day? Those are nuisance values of how they want to make sure they send the people away from the masjid. And I said, look, when the man donated the masjid to you, do you have documentation? They said no. I said, this is where you have the problem. Anywhere a masjid is built and it is institutionalized as a waqf, there must be what we call hujjatul waqf, or the sigga the Waqf deed, when you buy land from people, don't you have what you call, deed of, what do you call it? Deed of assignment, don't you have it? So why don't you do the same thing for the masjid? Any Waqf you do, there must be what you call Hujjatul Waqf. That is, Waqf deed must be there. It must be documented. There must be any witnesses, so that no any stupid or any useless child will come tomorrow and say, this masjid belongs to my father, so therefore we want to take it back. No, it belongs to Allah. It's the same thing with any other properties. We donate it as Waqf, except if the property comes under what we call Al-Waqful Mukit. Al-Waqful Mukit means temporary Waqf. Temporary Waqf. It is Imam Maliki and his students that said Waqf can be temporary, even though part of the condition of Waqf is that it must be permanent. But today, there are a lot of arguments that even some of the students from the Hanabila, from the Shafi'iyya, and then from the Hanafiya, like for example, Abu Yusuf is from the Hanafiya school of thought. Hanafiya school of thought are the one that is the most strict when it comes to Waqf. They are very, very strict. They don't compromise. They say Waqf must be permanent. But one of its students, Abu Yusuf, also aligned with the Malikiya school of thought, that it can be al-waqf al-mukit. It can be temporary. You can say, look, I want to build, or I want to give you my investment share, 100% of it, but for only 50 years. For only 50 years. From today, you have to do the Hujjatul Waqf, you do the Waqf deed. You put it there. Today, 28th Ramadan, 1445, equivalent to Sunday, 7 April, 2024. This is the starting date. And then you calculate 50 years to this time. When it is exactly 50 years, I want that Waqf to be reverted back to me. Even if the man is no longer alive, it means his children will take it back. That is what they call al-Waqf al-Mukit. But those that advocate for permanent Waqf, it is called al-Waqf al-Mubid. Permanency. It must be permanent. Do it and remove your eye from it. You get the reward. Both of them will get the reward. But there are arguments for and against. So if you see somebody saying, no, Waqf must be permanent, Waqf can also be temporary. And they have evidences for it. Then the third condition is mawqufu alayhi, which I mentioned that the beneficiaries must be clearly stated in the Waqf deed. You can do some Waqf and you said, this Waqf I want to do, for example, the one we want to do in this center here. I'm just saying it doesn't mean that is what we want to do. Don't get me wrong. We say the Waqf we want to do is for orphans. For orphans. So, orphan children are the one we want to do this for. We want the orphan children to also benefit from memorizing the Quran, learning the science of recitation, and then learning Arabic language. So it means if you bring a child that is not an orphan, it cannot benefit from the Waqf. That is the meaning. The Mawquf alayhi must be clearly stated. So if you bring a child that is not an orphan, it cannot benefit. Because in the Waqf deed, it is written there that this Waqf is to benefit orphans. But if you say this Waqf deed is to benefit orphans and indigent, that is poor children, and then children of widows, so it means we have expanded it. So orphans can benefit, children from poor homes can benefit, or children from widows can benefit. That is the meaning of Mawqufu alayhi must be clearly stated. You can have a foundation and say your foundation, you want to support the less privileged people. Again, if you want to be very specific, you must mention in your Waqf deed, the Mawqufu alayhi for this my foundation is only for women. Only women. So it means even if you have hundreds of millions, going to billions in your account. If you bring any native to any old man, he cannot benefit. Because it has been stated in the Waqf deed that the beneficiary should be women. So are you a woman? You are not a woman. So please go to the next foundation. So that is the way it works. But for those who want to give it open-ended, you can say my beneficiaries are both men and women, children, young and old, orphans, indigent. You expand it. It means you have a very wider scope. Then the fourth condition is that you don't institutionalize Waqf and then you delay it. It must be immediate. It must be immediate. You don't delay it again. It's just like you build a mosque and you donate the mosque to the community. And say, please, I've donated it to, and you sign the document. Today, 7 April, you hand over to them. And now come and say, please don't let them start worshiping. No. Now, let them see, wait. I will tell them when, to start. No, it doesn't work that way. The day you do it and you sign the document and you hand over, it starts from that particular date. You don't delay. Then, categories of Waqf. Because of time, I'm looking at it, let me quickly just rush without much of tafsir. When we talk about the categories of Waqf, we have three major, parameters. Number one is timing. The timing, like I said, can either be permanent or temporary. Then the purpose. All these things must be contained in the Waqf deed. Must be contained. What I'm saying must be contained in the Waqf deed. The purpose. We have majorly 4 different purposes you can channel the Waqf into. Number one, it can be al-Waqf al-Ahli or Waqf al-Dhurri. It can be a family Waqf. Just like we said, some of the companions, most of them, they did family Waqf for their family. When I say for your family, I mean indigent members of your family. Not somebody who's already economically better off. Not somebody who is rich in your family. Poor members of your family. If in the next 5 to 6 years, there is no any person that is poor in your family, then that Waqf must be transferred to what we call Waqf al-Khair. General philanthropy, public philanthropy. Because you don't do Waqf for, people, somebody who himself is capable of, feeding himself. Number 2 is Waqf al-Khair. Under Waqf al-Khair, we have 2 classifications. It can be one, Waqf al-Amma, general Waqf, or it can be Waqf al-Khassa, specific. Under general Waqf, it is Waqf general for everybody. But if it is Khassa, it is specific. It is Waqf that is specific. For example, this Waqf is for hospital, for medical, health, anything that has to do with health. It doesn't concern economic empowerment. It doesn't concern education. It's just for health alone. That is specific. But if it is general, it means it can take care of health challenge, it can take care of education, it can take care of economic empowerment, it can take care of welfare. Those ones are general. Again, one has to decide which one he wants to do. Then, number 3, under the same purpose, it can be Waqf al-Musharaka, hybrid. You can combine it. Waqf al-Khair and Waqf al-Hali. The one for the family and then the one for general philanthropy. You can combine the 2 together. And then the last but not the least is what we call al-Waqf al-Ahl al-Nafs. You as an individual, you can also set up a Waqf for yourself as an individual. I'm still very much alive. I want to do Waqf for myself. Okay, I have 50 million naira. I put it down as Waqf for myself. Now, to take care of my need. Maybe in the next 10 years, I may no longer be working. I'm now a retiree. So I want to enjoy my retirement life. I don't want to die suffering. Because when somebody gets retired and is getting old, the major challenges we'll be having is health challenges and then welfare. So I want something to take care of my health challenges and welfare. So that Waqf is for yourself. It is the profit you get from it that you use to take care of yourself. Then the third parameter is the object, that is the mawquf. It can be movable, it can be immovable. Movable are things that you can move from one point to the other. Immovable are structures that are permanent. Like I said, waqf can be tangible, it can be intangible, depending on whichever one wants to do. Then types of waqf. We have like about 6. We have waqf al-qawmi. Waqf al-qawmi means the waqf of a state or of a country. For example, look at it. It doesn't have any geographical limitation. You can be in Nigeria and then you can establish Waqf al-Qawmi in Saudi Arabia. For example, King Zarga Sinari of Sinari Kingdom in Sudan, it did Waqf al-Qawmi in Saudi Arabia. Build a house. That house is still very much functioning till today in Saudi Arabia. Most of the students, children from Sudan, when they land in Saudi Arabia, they don't have where to stay. They stay in that particular apartment, depending when they are able to settle down completely. That is the kind of Waqf al-Qawmi we can do. We can do it in any part of the world, in Nigeria, anywhere. Number 2, we have Waqf al-Sultani. Waqf al-Sultani, a very good example is the one we have in Saudi Arabia. That particular King Abdul Aziz Waqf, that giant building, tower, that is facing the Masjid al-Haram, where we have a very giant wall clock in Saudi Arabia. It is called Clock Tower. It is called King Abdul Aziz Waqf, K-A-A-W. That is what we call, it's an example of Waqf al-Sultani, the Waqf that was endowed by rulers, by kings. So many of our kings, how many of them do have Waqf in Nigeria? This is something that they should do for their community and bring public good to them. If you are a ruler, if you are ever governed in this country, either as a chairman of a local government, or either as a governor, or either as a president, and you fail to have a Waqf, you have missed it. You have missed it. Completely, you have missed it. Because these are things that will save you, protect you even when you are no longer alive. You have the opportunity now, do it, don't delay. The third one is called Waqf Jamahiri. This one comprises everybody. It is not only the rich people, even the poor man, the man selling orange outside, the man selling dabino outside, can also contribute to Waqf Jamahiri. Right? And how does this work? Even this one wants to do in this center here. We want to raise, like I said, we want to upgrade it to 100 million. We can also adopt another methodology. Meet any of the service provider, either MTN or either Glo or either whichever one that you feel is okay with us. Sit down with them, discuss with them, and say, look, we want to raise 100 million naira, for the next 6 months. And then we want to use it for this particular project. Then we want contribution from the general people. That is why we call it Waqf Jamahiri, from the general people. And how do we do this? The service provider have the capacity and then the ability to be able to help it to generate. How? Through a special code. They can give you star 001 or star 101 star hash. And then send. When you send it, it will deduct from your airtime, maybe 20 naira or 15 naira. You can repeat that one several times you like. Now, that money you are generating from just sending will enable even the poorest of the poor among us to also participate in this Waqf. That is what we call Waqf Jamahiri. For everybody. So by the time you do that severally, before 6 months, you will have realized the money you need for the particular Waqf project. So both the rich and the poor have participated in this. Then we have what we call some Waqf, shares Waqf. Some of us have shares that we have bought in the last 20 years, and they are giving us dividends every year. Those dividends are a lot of money that we get. So you can decide to look at, say, a part of my shares that I have, let me transfer the ownership to this center. I have like maybe 50 shares from different companies, big blue chips organizations. One of them, let me just give them. So let them be collecting the dividend and then use it to run the center. It is also something that can be done. The other one is what we call Waqf Sukuk. Sukuk is popular now, right? But we think Sukuk is only for roads. Because the Sukuk the federal government is doing is Sukuk for roads. So when you move say Sukuk number 1, Sukuk number 2, Sukuk number 3, Sukuk number 4, Sukuk number 5, Sukuk is not for road alone. You can use Sukuk to raise money in the capital markets for a very big project. That clock tower in Saudi Arabia, do you know that the money they use to develop that project was raised through Sukuk? It was raised through Sukuk. They use what we call Waqf Intifa, 10 share bond Sukuk, to raise the money to build that tower in 2002. They completed the tower in 2007. The tower is going to the Sukuk, the principle of build, operate, and transfer will expire in the next 3 to 4 years. And then it will now revert back to the original owner. Who is the original owner of that tower? It is the King Abdulaziz, Foundation. But the people who midwife it is the they call it Bin Laden group. They are the one that midwife, that particular projects. The King Abdulaziz Waqf Foundation leased the land to Bin Laden Group. When they leased the land to Bin Laden Group now went through the capital market to raise, the capital with which they build it. And how did they do this? They invited, a company in Kuwait to construct those 7 towers. There are 7 towers in that building. And several residential apartments, commercial apartments, multi-purpose, halls, recreation centers. It is like a state within a state. And that center, that particular tower is connected to the city center in Mecca. That company now went through the capital market to raise the capital with which they build that particular center. Everybody is making money. By the time the tenure of that project expires in the next 3 or 4 years, the project, because it was built under BOT, build, operate, and transfer, it will now revert back to the original owner of the land. When Bin Laden Group will now, return back the leased land to the KAW. You can see. So we can also raise money by going through the capital market. This is what Lotus Capital just did recently. When they wanted to raise money, for one of their Waqf, they went through the capital market, and then they have been able to at least dot the T's, cross the T's, dot the I's. And because the capital market is the market where you can get money from the people through a formal setting, and everything will be transparent because the regulators are involved. They will also make sure that the needful is done. The last but not the least is Waqf no-code. Waqf no-code, cash Waqf. So Waqf is not about just building or asset alone. Waqf, cash Waqf. This is the contemporary Waqf. It is the most easiest. People, you don't need to have Waqf, to have cash Waqf physically. Nobody will tell you that, look, I don't have cash with me. You have your phone with you. With your phone, you can transfer millions from your account without leaving where you are, just like we are seated here now. Without you knowing, the man sitting next to you can transfer millions from his account to another account. And you won't know. So that is how simple this thing has been. So, and of course, there are so many benefits of Waqf. I'll just mention very few of them. Waqf prevents property abandonment, and wastages. You have a property that is wasting. For example, look at the Federal Secretariat. Anytime I pass through that place, I weep. I weep for this country. Look at the Federal Secretariat, the old Federal Secretariat. Look at the wastage. The wastage. A gigantic building is getting rotten. For decades, that property is there. Some people are fighting the federal government in Lagos that the property was built on the property of the state government, so the federal government should cede it. But it is we, the citizens, who are the worst off people. That property, if they have put it into useful purpose, do you know how much will have been generated, and that money what it will do in terms of welfare, treatment for Nigerians? But it's just wasted. It's just there, wasted. And nobody is talking, nobody is saying anything. But if we have such properties and we convert it to Waqf, sincerely speaking, we know what is going to be generating that will solve so many economic and social challenges of Nigerians. Number two, also, it is through Waqf that we can easily be able to generate funds to complement government efforts. Everything is not government. Even through the PPP, we can also raise funds to complement the effort of government through Waqf. I'll give you an example. The Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, the KA, big giant, 7 towers are there in that building. Out of those buildings, there are 2 helicopters, top where helicopters can stand on top of the towers. That clock tower is the largest and is the highest in any part of the world in this dunya. It is a lot of money. And a room alone in one of the towers there, one of the hotels there, a room alone runs into millions, just for one night. And you can imagine throughout the year, the place is busy. The place is always busy. The kind of money they generate. We can do something similar in Nigeria here, where we have a consortium of different, corporate entities coming together to come and do something that can become beneficial to Nigerians, to the Ummah in particular. And of course, it is also a means through which it can complement, our zakat. Zakat is one of. The Waqf is very, very broad. Zakat, you collect it in 1 year, then you spend it in 1 year. The Waqf, you collect it in 1 year, it is there for so many years. And it is very, very broad, unlike the zakat, which is limited. And of course, it is also a means through which we can also help government to reduce government's expenses. Instead of our government going to borrow.
And they are right. They don't pay tax. They don't pay tax. No matter the amount of money they are collecting, they don't pay tax. They don't pay tax. Why? Because there are so many institutions under the Islamic social finance that government is using to bring public to their people. And finally, in conclusion, I said I'm going to mention some examples. The time will not permit me. My organization, for example, in Abuja, when we collected our seed capital, from the mother organization, over 2 billion naira. What we did
in the northern part of the country and in the southern part of the country, but more than 60 to 70% of the fund, we use it to establish another Waqf. Because the foundation itself is a Waqf foundation. We use part of the money to set up Jais Takaful Insurance Limited. Jais Takaful Insurance Limited is a corporate entity, but it is a Waqf of the foundation. The Takaful does insurance businesses in line with the Sharia. So whatever dividends they make after in a year from the shareholders' dividends, they give back the foundation, so that the foundation can use the money to continue to do its charity and humanitarian interventions. So that money, if we don't do that, we keep using the money to provide charity, whatever, the money will finish one day. Number two, part of the fund again was used to establish Jais Investment and Services Limited, another corporate organization that is into facility management, outsourcing, commodity, trading, and their likes. That company is also functioning to today. So part of their profit they make, they also return back part of it to the mother organization, which is the foundation that set it up. Then we also have what we call JAIS International Halal Certification. It is in the halal business. It does halal certification, it does halal training for so many organizations here and there. They also share part of their profit with the foundation. So that the original money is still intact with which they set up this company. That the proceeds from those organizations in terms of their profit is what they give to the foundation to keep its charitable and humanitarian services. So this is one way through which, cash workful can also support us, in this part of the world. I'm going to stop here because of time factor. There are so many other examples I would have loved to share with us, and they also relate it with the SDG goals, how, workful can also enable us to achieve all those goals. But time is not on our side here, and I have to stop at this junction. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah increase in wisdom and knowledge.
Are you Salah? In Salah, so you just come back. It's better that way.
Assalamu alaikum. Due to time for Salah and the program of event is a little bit, we are almost coming to the end, so we just wanted to save time, go for a break, observe our Salah, and then come back and conclude the class, the program, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Huh? Ya za a yi da wannan yanzu za a cire kenan.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. From the break, we won't take much time. We just want to make a recapitulation of the lecture in Hausa just in 5 minutes, inshallah, by Chief Imam, and then we move on to the questions and answers, inshallah.
Mana mai jarida a cikin lakcin hannun da ya faɗi abubuwa masu lokaci ba zai iya ba da dama nuna da tafiye su bayan an ce ne ko kuma yi kamar da na iya capturing daga farko yanzu ya ta abuwa gaba tara, amma zan ƙara matse gaba taran nan ya koma gaba uku in Allah ya yarda. Na farko yana da matukan muhimmanci mu fahimci wakafi yana da muhimmanci a rayuwa. Shi ne gatan da mutum musulmi zai wa kanshi a duniya yanzu don ya mai amfani a lahira. Ba ka da abin da ya fi wannan gatan. Brothers, please, I need your attention, please. Ba ka da gatan da za ka yi wa kanka fiye da kama wakafi, ka yi wakafi. Na biyu, zan ba da wasu misalai, wasu a cikin sahabbai, wasu a zamaninmu akan wakafi. Malam Dr. Shu'aib ya yi magana akan abin nan bayanin me wakafi, kashe-kashen wakafi. Ya ce ba mu da wakafi a tsarin Najeriya. Wato tsarin Najeriya mun samu matsala, Allah ya kawo mana sauki. Kuma ya kawo mana waɗanda za su yi gyara. Ba mu da tsarin wakafi ma gaba ɗaya. So in kai wakafi, you are on your own. ila kai da abin da state ne in state ɗin kuna da shi ko wani abu makamancin haka. Amma abu mafi muhimmanci a wakafi shi ne, gaba ta gaba shi ne wakafi ba a gadon shi, ba kuma ka cewa a'a babana ke da wannan, family na ke da wannan, bari in zo in yi ƙabe-ƙabe a kai. A'a, in ka ce wannan ka ba Allah to ka ba Allah. In aka samu masu amana waɗanda za su kula da wannan wakafin, ana zira musu ido ne sai abin da ya dace. Wannan yana da matuƙar mahimmanci mu sa wannan a kwalanmu. Wakafi ba kwa zuwa ku ce ku ne ona, ku za ku ce yes and no. A'a, wannan na Allah ne, so mutanen kirki suke control ɗin shi. Allah Ubangiji ya sa mu fahimci wannan. Abu na gaba, malam yake cewa ya kawo misalan wakafi tun daga Sayyidina Abubakar, Usman, Umar, da wasu sahabbai. A nan sai zan ɗauki abu guda biyu kaɗai. Na farko, rijiyar Sayyidina Usman. Wala ya bada tarihin ta, rijiya ce da suka je garin Madina aka siye ta annan ba Yahudi, aka sayi rabinta. Da yake musulmai suna da wayo na zamanin, sai suka ce ba damuwa a sai rabin rijiya. Ɗiban ruwan musulmai a ɗiba hadda na gobe, rabi na shi rabi na ranar namu za a yi ɗiba hadda na gobe. Ranar nashi ba zai ciniki ba, sai ya haƙura ma ya siyan ma musulmi rijiya. Manzon Allah ce duk wanda ya sai bi'iru bi'ir ruma, manzon ce falahul janna. Duk in ka sai rijiyar kawai manzon Allah ce duk wanda ya siya yana da tiket ɗin aljanna kai tsaye. Sayyidina Usman ya ce ko nawa ne sai na siya, kuma ya siye ta. So yana da wannan tiket ɗin aljannan kuma yana raye. So yana da matuƙar muhimmanci duk yadda kaga za ka yi wakafi. Na taɓa zama kan wata, na taɓa zuwa masallaci a cikin ariyan Lagos, sai na ba da kutuban juma'a akan abin nan muhimmancin kafin ka mutu kama kanka wani abu. Wani cikin musulmai yana gefe na yana saurara na, wallahi ina saukowa daga mimbarin, sai na ba da misalin wasu family da babansu ya tara kuɗi ba kuɗin wasa ba, ya mutu suka yi ta rikici a kotu. Sai na ba da misali, da ya fito sai ya zubar da hawaye ya yi kuka. Bayan ya yi kuka sai ce malam wannan lecture taka ta taɓa ni. Sai na ce Allah ya sa mu yi aiki da ita. Wallahi ba a yi wata 6 ba sai Allah ya ɗauki rayuwar shi. Da Allah ya ɗauki rayuwar shi, ashe shi ma ya yi filo da kuɗi. Sosai yana da filaye da ƙadarori. Sai matar shi ta ce to Allah a samu, ta ji labarin cewa wani fili na shiga shi can, yana so zai ba da filin ne ya gina islamiyya da masallaci, amma bai samu dama ba. Kai tsaye dan wansa ce no, bari in an raba an baki naki ki je ki gina islamiyya da masallaci. Amma yanzu ya shiga cikin harkan gado, ba ta da fa su ci da baki ta shiru, shi kenan ya tafi. Abin da na yi ta tunani shi ne yanzu wannan bawan Allah ya tafi bai makansa wakafi ba. Na biyu, shi ma na je abin nan harkan gadon, shi ma wani mutum ne mai kuɗi, ya sai ƙaddarori, Allah ya bashi kuɗi dai, ya yi suna, na faɗi sunan shi duk an san shi. Wallahi yana da masallaci, sai je so kayan aikin masallacin ya ajiye, cewa yana so zai yi aikin, sai bai samu daman aikin ba. Ga fa kayan ya so, yana mutuwa, ‘ya'yan aka ce ku ɗan ɗauka wani abu a cikin kuɗin nan, ku ɗan gyara masallacin dan lada. Na je na ga masallacin a wani gari, ba zan faɗi sunan garin ba, nan cikin garin abin nan a Ogun State. Na je na ga masallacin hawa ɗaya, masallacin ya yi collapse. Sai suka ce mu ɗan ɗibi wani abu cikin dukiyan nan a gyara babanmu wannan wajen. Dukiyar farko da aka fara da ya rasu cikin within 3 days sai suka ce ba su da kuɗi. Ya ka ce akwai kuɗi cash da yake da shi, aka ɗauko 33 million aka ce a ɗan raba, ko a ɗan samu ɗan abin kashewa. Aka raba 33 million. A kwana biyu ba a yi 2 weeks ba aka ce ba kuɗi ba. Haka aka rinka zaro kuɗi ‘yan wani musu. sai suka ce a ɗan ɗiba a ɗan gyara mai wannan ɗan masalan, sai kowa ce a bari sai masu yawa sun zo. Har yanzu mai yawa bai zo ba. Idan wani lokaci mutum ya samu opportunity muna irin wannan nasihan yana faruwa da yawa. Parkview nan, Parkview. Wata rana na je na mun sallah sai limamin ya kira da muka zauna ya ce wannan filin da muke da shi asali ba a bamu ba. Amma malam don Allah ku samu a cikin addu'a. Idan Allah ya sa filin nan an bamu shi ga abin da muke da ƙarfi. Sai na ce kun san me filin? Sai suka ce an ce mana wani ne ya taɓa riƙe jama'atu nasrul islam shine ko sakatarensu ne ya taɓa riƙe wannan position ɗin. So amma an gaya mana address ɗin shi da me sai suka je suka yi naɗa delegate suka same shi wannan nan Parkview nan wannan masallacin Parkview suka je same shi aka je aka zana baba ya tsufa aka ce kana da wani fili a Parkview ya ce bai da fili a Parkview saboda arziki ya zauna an sai fili lokacin akwai wadata ya manta lokacin ma da ya ce bai da fili a Parkview. Aka ce ma ba kana da fili a Parkview to sai aika lauyan shi je land and survey in Lagos yake bincika. Aka je aka bincika kana shiga Parkview katon fili ne shine number 1. Aka je aka bincika sai aka kawo mai lawyer ce baba wannan filin ka ne gashi land and survey sun tabbatar filin ka yi da sunan ka da komai da komai. Sai ce okay na tuna. Ku yi mun addu'a an samu lokacin in gina shi. Sai suka ce mu yanzu babu abin da muke so. Ka ba mu dama mu gina. Sai ce a'a shi yana so ya gina ni da kanshi. Suka ce a'a baba yau da gobe rayuwa na tafiya ka dai ba mu dama za mu gina kayan mu. Ya ce ga dai 13 miliyan ko wani abu similar to ya ce ku je ku yi tent irin tent mai kyau ku sa ACs a cikin tent din don ya zama akwai abin nan wajen sallah a natsi. Suka je suka yi sai suka koma sai limamin Allah ya mai ilhama sai suka ƙara komawa cewa a je a samu baban nan mutuwa fa ake yi a same shi a ƙara danna shi. Da aka samu baba ya ce to ku je ku gina. Da suka je sai ce amma ni zan ɗauka kaso mai tsoka cikin ginin. Sai suka ce mun ji kawai permission ɗinka muke nema. Sai suka zo suka naɗa delegate sun fara gini ya rubuta a takarda cewa suka ce idan muka yi sakaci baba ya mutu ba mu fara sallah a masallacin nan ba zai shiga cikin kayan gado. Sai aka ba limamin shawara aka ce kawai a fara nemo taimako wajen individual people a fara sa pillars. Sai aka nemo taimako nan Parkview fa wani lokaci sai Allah ya saukar maka aya kusa da kai ka kasa ɗaukan izina. Aka sa pillars aka zo aka fara aka sa su 1-story building. Baba bai sani ba sai aka ɗauka picture aka yi wa baba gashi ɗan ginin da ake an nan fara ɗan abin nan so muke ka sa albarka kai ka ba mu takarda cewa ka mallaka ma musulman Parkview wannan filin. Ya ce ba shi takarda da biro ya sa ya rubuta ya yi haka da wasu 'yan watannin da ba su kai wata 6 ba ya mutu. Idan muna faɗin wasu abubuwa akan mimbari ko dama ce mutum ya yi wallahi karka jira malam cikin lakcin shi ce don't delay. Kalman delay din nan it means a lot kana tunawa je kai saboda yau mutuwan nan ba ta hannunka ba ta hannuna amma in ka riga ka yi magada ba su isa su juya maka wannan abin ba. In sun mutu abin da ya rage na dukiya bari su je su raba. Alhaji Yusuf shaman ɗin masallaci mace abokinsa type friend ɗinsa ya ce ya mutu sai ya ce dan Allah yana so zai gina masallaci bayan ya mutu yayin suka ce ko shakka estate za su gina filin yayi aka buga juyin duniya suka ce ko ba maganan ma masallaci ba estate ga inda zai kawo musu kudi. Saka shi he has good zeal amma ba using opportunity ba. Da ka yi wasu a yi ƙoƙari don Allah in ka samu dama wakafi ba sai ka yi da kuɗi da yawa ba da yawa ba. In ka samu dama gidanku toilet ɗinku misali kana da gida za ka iya ba da single one toilet ka ce wakafi ne. Ɗan abu ɗan kaɗan za ka iya ka ce wannan wakafi ne lillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ubangiji ya samu dace.
Amin.
Ni anan zan tsaya wala musamman da kai.
Jazakumullah khairan.
Iyyakum.
Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu fiik. At this time, I will questions and answers. So, on the first question will go like this. The discussion from the chat box. It's a question, the first question of you ask the question goes like this. Say, can I develop the residence I inherited from my late father for work to my father, mother, and all our generators, late or living?
In za ku iya duba question da suke da alaka da juna, you join them together.
Yawa.
We'll beat it at once.
It's the same time.
Correct. So let him answer that. You say ku da ku fara.
Huh?
Want to write something?
I just wanted to take down.
All of them.
No. What the Imam said is important. So let me take that from him every time. And as you can, okay, chat box, no? Okay. Waqf. Okay.
Assist him in generating the similar question.
No, let me use this. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is very interesting question. Let me just take it again. Can I develop the residence I inherited from my late father for Waqf to my father, mother, and all our generations, late and living? The first thing we need to know is that are you the sole inheritor of this property? If there are other co-inheritors with you, it is important that there should be a very clear statement from all those who are inheritors of this property that they agree that they want to use it as a Waqf. If there is one dissenting voice, you have to go back to the drawing board to make sure that you get that dissenting voice to agree with you, not by coercion, but based on conviction and proper understanding. When that is done, it is also very important that they should also document it. There should be a written document that will be signed by all of them. That is, I'm talking of your siblings or those who are co-inheritors of this property, that we agreed, yes, to convert this to a Waqf for XYZ. Yes, and the second part of the question is, yes, you can use the property as a Waqf. Like I said, it may not just be a tangible property, not a movable and immovable property. Anyone, either movable or immovable. The most important thing is that does that property has what we call usufruct. The usufruct is, that is, we are talking of the intrinsic value that whoever is going to use it is going to derive from it. Because there is no point in making use of anything for work for when there is no value in it, right? So we must also establish that. At the moment it has been established that yes, there are lots of values, people can benefit from it, and then based on every other advices I have given with regards to the Waqf deed, you have to follow that, and then we now put it across. One thing which I did not remember to mention because of time factor is that anytime we are putting in place a Waqf, it is very important that we also set up what we call Waqf Management Committee or Waqf Management Board. Waqf Management Committee or Waqf Management Board, they are going to be the people that will be carrying out the oversight function on that Waqf. They are not the manager of the Waqf. Don't get me wrong. The Waqf Management Board or Waqf Management Committee will be performing oversight function. They are going to be the one to put in place the policies, the guidelines that, the management, those who are going to, the manager who is going to run the place, it is thing we have to comply with regards to the Waqf property. It is the responsibility of the Waqf Management Committee to ensure that when we look at the economic perspective of Waqf, idhkar, tatwir, and istithmar, and then tahrim, ta'zim rihin, are in place, so that the purpose of the Waqf, sustainability and continuity, will not be compromised. For those of us who do business, there's something we call business continuity plan. In other words, sustainability plan for our businesses, because we don't want that business, to hit the rock. So every year we have to look at it. It's the same thing with the Waqf. That is why you need experts, you need professionals, to be part of that committee. So everybody will bring on board their expertise. You need a lawyer, you need a QS, if it is a property, to be there, estate surveyor must be there. Then you also need Sharia expert to be there. You need an accountant to be there. You need a good administrator also to be there. So you need all these things combined together to be able to ensure that that particular property can stand the test of time. Like I said, it is not when you start. It is how you are able to sustain it. If you do something for 1 year, 2 years, the thing hit the rock and then collapse. It is not because that thing is not good. It's because the people who are managing it are not doing the right thing. Just like when you have accident on the road, it's not because the road is bad. It's because the driver who is driving it is the one that is not being careful. If you are passing through a road that has potholes, as a professional driver, you should know what you should do. If you are passing through a road for the first time, you don't know the terrain of the road. You cannot be riding as if you are riding on your normal roads to your house or your workplaces. You must be able to anticipate that there could be challenges here and there, and then you must tread softly. So in a nutshell, it is possible, but you must follow those principles and the guidelines that I have mentioned.
It's a similar concept that you should add something that after institutionalizing the work for the family or community, the head, the family has the right to manage it to ensure it remains on course or not.
Yes, it is very important that we take out sentiments and emotions. Take away sentiments and emotions from it. But if in that family you have professionals in that family with regards to the people you will need, and the Waqf deed has been already sealed, signed and sealed, so that the issue that it is my father does not even arise at all. Don't even bring that on board. You are here as a professional. So if I am Abdullah Shuaib, it is my property, my father's property, but he has endowed it. And because of my expertise, they now said, we want you because you have expertise in this area to be part of the team. So if I'm there, I'm not going to be speaking as if this property belongs to my father. No. I'm speaking as a professional in this case. Period. So even if the whole committee disagree with my position, I must not say, look, this property was given to you by my father. That is, you are being emotional and being sentimental. So that is why it is advisable that we try to, create a division, between father, son, property. But if we don't have any option, but he is an expert in that area, you can bring him on board, but on that purpose, as a professional, that's why you are here. And that will save the committee members the problem of unnecessary interferences or creating problems here and there, and then they will not be able to do their work.
The child has information, and the child willing to sell their father's work besides the masjid, and they be challenged or can they be taken to court of carrying out such action?
You see, you can go to court, but like the lawyer will always tell you, the state go to court, we will try our effort. It's a fundamental error, and I use this opportunity again to educate us that it is important. Anywhere somebody is donating a mosque for an organization here and there, we must do proper documentation. This is very, very important because we have seen cases like this. We must do proper documentation, apart from the fact that documentation of the lands and then the masjid, documentation of Waqf must be done. That is what I'm referring to, must be done. And when this is done, because we don't have Sharia court registry, we have no choice. It has become a necessity. We still have to use the High Court registry. And this is what we tell people, that you take it to the High Court registry to go and register it in order to prevent all this kind of situation in future. When you document it and then you have a copy of the record, the person himself, except if the person is ignorant, if the person is informed, he will not even make any attempt to come and make any claim that, look, I want to sell this property because it belongs to my father. They can only do that when they know you don't have documents. And those are the children that we regard to as the black sheep in the family, who do not understand Islam and who wanted to, slap Islam on the face. But it is important for us, to do this. And secondly, I also want to say this. Each time I always want to say something will make me to forget. I tell many masajid or community, you see, Allah has blessed us in this masjid like this. Even if it is for 10-15 minutes, we should try as much as possible to know the profession of regular worshippers in our masjid. What I mean to say is that we should try to know regular worshippers in our masjid, to know their profession. And I know we have engineers among us. We have legal, practitioners among us. We have medical doctors among us. We have, chartered accountants among us. We have all these, professionals among us. Let us create an avenue, even if it is 10 to 15 minutes. Let them come and educate us about their professions, so that we know what our rights are. We know what our duties are. We know what our obligations are. If you ask a lawyer in the masjid to come and talk 5 to 10, 15 minutes, it's not going to be a one-off. It's going to be a series to educate us on issues like this. Tomorrow, some of us will be better informed. We will know what we are supposed to do. When you ask a medical doctor to come and talk on some topical issues with us, ditto with an accountant, it goes a long way to keep the ummah well educated, well informed, so that we'll be able to do what? Bring value on board. So with regards to what you have said, a child will only do that when he knows that you don't have documents. And when they go to court, if the child has a document that shows that the property belongs to him, to his father, and is a rightful heir, if he has a very good lawyer, he will win the case. He will win the case. But if he has a very intelligent lawyer that understands Islam, that case, can go on for years. At the end of the day, it may be in favor of the Muslim community, because if we look at the issue, it's about a community with an individual. But the most important thing is that let us always document. Most of our masajis don't have documents. And it is not proper. Let us always have documents for it. Even if we don't have the deeds, let's do Waqf document and go and register it. And that will serve as an encumbrance for whoever wants to come and say, I want to sell this document. That is my advice.
Next, can a non-Muslim be a mawquf? And is proceeding of Waqf investment taxable?
Can a non-Muslim be mawquf alayhi? Not mawquf. Mawquf is the object. The beneficiary is mawquf alayhi. It depends on the waqf. If the waqf is for general, waqf amma, general, then it's, as included in non-Muslim. But if it is waqf khassa, you specify it, that this waqf is waqf al-khair, walakin khassa, for Muslims, then non-Muslims cannot benefit from it. If it is specified in the waqf deed. But if it is not specified in the waqf deed, it is waqf amma, general, then a non-Muslim can benefit from it. And then what is the second?
Is proceeding of Waqf.
Yes.
Investment tax.
Yes. We have similar experience in my workplace. The Federal Inland Revenue, You know, when they came on board this particular year, they slammed us with a bill, and then they say they look at our book, and you know the way they do it, they will always look for one area. At the end of the day, they will ask you to negotiate. So when they saw, you know, investment here and there, I said, fortunately, the officer that came is a Muslim, but he doesn't understand. So I took some time to educate him about Waqf, that the concept of investment in the conventional world is different with the concept of investment when it comes to Waqf that we are doing. Because the proceeds of the Waqf is not something, it's not a profit that you want to share. It is proceeds we are going to use for charity. For charity purpose. So after a lot of enlightenment, he became well informed. He now asked me, please, doctor, can you do us a paper so that I can use that as an evidence, so that when I get to the office, I write my report to my own superior, my director. And I did a 3-page summary paper for him, and then they took it. At the end of the day, they came back, they understood. So all those bills they said we are going to pay, which were proceeds of our investment, which is not something we use or we share, but we use it for charity. So all those things became non-taxable for us. So, like I said, a lot of our people who are in position of authority are disconnected from all these informations. And you see them, they are the ones sitting as directors. They are the one, you know, asking the boys to go to the field to go and do their work, because they don't understand. So you cannot blame them. But when they understood, they say, okay, now we understood, we do the needful. So we need to let them understand that those proceeds are not in the conventional world where they understand investment as money that is taxable. It is money for charity, which must be deployed back for charitable purposes. And then the Muslim community, Islamic organization will be better off. Otherwise, with the way the law of the country is structured, particularly when you look at the company income tax act, you know, it doesn't discriminate. Everything is in the same basket. So we have to take pain to explain to them, for them to be able to understand us. But we need to talk to our people who are driving, you know, the industry in the capital market, and those who are legislators, and then those who are also in the inland revenue offices, for them to understand the way Islamic finance work in this part of the world.
Please, to save time, we are going to attend to 1 to 2 questions only. For the rest, if you know your questions is not attended to, please you can meet Malam. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Is a child educational trust fund zakatable? How can a Muslim convert a landed property to Waqf through BOT?
Educational trust fund. You see, there is a difference in Nigerian law. There are specific rules and laws governing trust fund. They are different from Waqf. So at times we do make this mistake. They are not the same. But because this is not an Islamic Republic of Nigeria, it's a multi-religious, a multicultural, multi-ethnic, country. So this law governing us. So when some of our leaders register, they do call it trust funds. But what they have in their mind may be Waqf, but their understanding is that maybe it is this trust fund is Waqf. We can apply the principle of Waqf to it while not breaching the extant law that are governing trust funds in this country. And then that trust fund will not be subject to zakat because it is under Waqful Khair. Anything that is under Waqful Khair, general philanthropy, is not zakatable because it is charity itself. So such a trust fund is not. But because it is registered under the extant law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so some of its proceeds can be subject to tax. by the Inland Revenue Office, and you have no choice, but you have to pay the tax. Because the incorporation of the body itself was not done as a Waqf. It was done as a trust fund under the CAC. So it is what the law says that you are going to follow. So if it is subject to tax, you must pay the tax. It's as simple as ABC. But if it is with regards to, zakat, we know that it is not zakatable because it is a general, charity or philanthropy in Islam.
Jazakumullah khairan, Malam. May Allah increase you more in wealth, of knowledge and iman and wisdom. Moving to the next, please, for those questions that are not answered, inshallah, after the closure of the event, you can meet Malam and generalize the questions, inshallah. So moving to the next is vote of thanks by the chairman of the Ramadan committee. Bismillah, Sheikh. Allah Itigar the president of also the Institute of Directors.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Normally, this stage of vote of thanks is done by the chairman of the Ramadan committee. We have an individual, the chairman of our committee. Fortunately, he's out of town, so I'm saddled with his responsibility. I don't know how he has been doing it, but he's been doing it so well that I just sit here and listen. So perhaps all I can say, firstly, is to thank Malam Shaibu for his time, for his energy, for his intellect, for his trustworthiness. May Allah reward you abundantly.
Amen.
The topic he has discussed today, my appeal to each and every one of us, just like the Chief Imam has said that, go and think. We must start acting on what we plan to do. It doesn't have to be anything big, it doesn't have to be anything out of the normal. It's in our own interest to do that. So my appeal, by way of thanks to you, to have come to listen to this lecture, the best way we can thank ourselves is to make sure we go and start practicing what we plan to do. I thank you most sincerely for your time and apologize that the lecture has gone beyond our own time, but you can understand why. For those of us who are online, we thank you for your patience and also thank you for your own contribution. Lastly, but most importantly, I want to thank the leadership of this center. They have persevered over the last 9 years. Every year we have this lecture. May Allah continue to endow them, may Allah continue to guide them, may Allah reward their honor.
Amen.
Once more, I want to thank each and every one of us for being here. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi.
Next is presentation of gifts to the guest lecturer.
Doctor.
Jazakumullah khairan. This is a very beautiful gift.
Well,
Jazakumullah khairan.
we have Abdullahi Mekano. He's our CEO in this place, and we're happy to have him here. This gift, I believe, is a copy of the Holy Quran.
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I think for a Muslim, there's no better gift
Wallahi.
than this.
Wallahi.
Well, Abdullah, we know you have copies of these, not only physical copies, but Alhamdulillah, so much of it in your own head. But we believe that for what you have done for us, it's just part of our own appreciation.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
Anybody that comes here will give a token. I pray that you find this useful, and thank you most sincerely for this lecture.
Alhamdulillah.
Like, bring the
Alhamdulillah.
gifts.
MashaAllah.
Can you come here?
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. بارك الله فيكم جميعا.